work within which the institution function. So we are deeply honored by the gracious presence of Sir. So for our civil service aspirant, listening to a distinguished constitutional jurist like you is a rare opportunity to understand the governance which is beyond textbook. So through the experience of the judiciary and the constitution, definitely today we'll learn a lot of things from you, sir. So on behalf of everyone present here, I extended a very warm welcome to this webinar. Then I will introduce another eminent personalities, Vivek Patnaik sir, a distinguished former IAS officer and former permanent representative to India, representative of India in the International Civil Aviation Organization, Montreal, Canada, and former chairman of Odisha Public Service Commission. Sir joined IAS in 1966 and served in various important positions in Odisha as well as in India and in international institutions. So, Sir has a remarkable journey through public administration, international diplomacy, and institutional leadership. So, his experience reminds us that the governance today extends beyond geographical barrier, and the Indian administrator increasingly operate in a complex global environment. So, we are delighted to have you with us, sir, and welcome to this webinar. And then I will introduce Sri Ramesh Chandra Mishra sir, former IAS officer of Odisha cadre and former secretary to the Government of India, joining IAS in 1976 batch. Sir served in several important positions in the state and central government, and later served as a member in the Central Administrative Tribunal Cuttack branch. Sir has a very prolific writer, also work in different sector like governance, contemporary life, poetry, and spirituality. So your experience, which is combination of both administrative experience, literary reflection, brings a unique perspective to our discussion on the institution and governance. So we are privileged to have you with us, sir. Then I'll introduce Professor S.N. Mishra sir, who is served in the Ministry of Defense, including important responsibilities in DRDO, Indian Air Force, and aerospace sector. Sir also associated with eminent national leader like APJ Abdul Kalam, Pranab Mukherjee, A.K. Antony, and received commendation from the Prime Minister Office for his contribution to Defense Procurement Manual in 2005. So, after retirement, Sir has continued his academic journey as a professor, researcher, and mentor, contributing extensively to economic, defense studies, constitutional law, and public policy. So, Sir also guiding us. Many civil servants in Kalinga is also teaching different subjects also. So, definitely, Sir, your presence both in government institution as well as in academia makes your perspective particularly valuable for today's discussion. And Sir also retired from Indian Economic Service and Defense Account Service. Then I will introduce Ambassador Dr. Mola Mishra sir, former IFS officer and ambassador to Hungary. With academic background of political science and international relationship from JNU, Ambassador Mola Mishra sir represents world of diplomacy, international relations, and social justice. So after his diplomatic career, he pursued doctoral research on comparative study of marginalized community in Europe and India. So definitely it will help us in the today's discussion. And we are delighted to have you, sir, in this discussion. And let me introduce Major General Dr. Atanu Patnaik sir, distinguished Indian Army veteran, gallantry award winner, helicopter pilot, scholar, and academician with extensive operational experience, including in Siachen, command experience in Sikkim and Northeast, and international humanitarian experience with the United Nations mission in Lebanon and many other positions. So Major General Atman Patnaik sir brings a unique perspective on leadership, national security, institutional discipline, and public service. Sir had also completed PhD in psychology. So further add an important dimension to understand the leadership and human behavior. So we are really privileged to have you, sir, on this discussion today. And also I like to mention Anusaya ma'am, Badri Sarangi sir, Baradar sir, Swadesh Patnaik sir, and many other dignitaries who are present today on the webinar. So your presence and encouragement definitely a great deal to all of us, and definitely the young aspirant will learn a lot of things from today's program. So in briefly, the today's topic we are discussing about governance. We are many times talk about good governance, transparency, accountabilities, but how it is work? The answer is the institution and the people who lead and operate them. So constitution may provide the framework, but institution give that framework life. Parliament may make laws, but the executive implement the policy. Similarly, judiciary which protect the constitutional value and the rule of law. So independent institution ensure the accountability. So civil servant translate the public policy into action. So lot of things, the governance is the backbone of our country today. So ultimately citizens themselves are an essential part of the democratic governance. So therefore, strong institutions are not merely building, officer or organization. Institutions are the system of value, rules, responsibilities, and accountability and public trust. So today is an extraordinary opportunity for all of us. You may read hundreds of books on governance, you may study the constitutional provision, you may memorize the committee and recommendation of the government scheme, but there is something that books cannot completely provide, the wisdom that comes from experience. So we have all the experienced people. So learning, rather than learning from book, learning from the people who have lived that experience. So it is a great opportunity for all of us. So we are very much fortunate to have a session like this. So my request to all of you, don't listen only for exam point of view. Listen for perspective. Listen for wisdom. Listen for understanding on how institutional actually works. And most importantly, ask yourself, what kind of public servant do I want to become? Because ultimately, civil service is not merely about clearing an exam. It is about developing the capacity to serve the society with competency, integrity, and empathy. So therefore, today's webinar is an opportunity to connect experience with aspiration. The experience of distinguished public servant and institution, while the aspiration of the young Indians preparing to enter into the civil service. So I am confident that the insights shared today will help our participants and understand the governance not merely as a theoretical concept, but living process of decision making, institutional building, and accountability. And let's begin the session. And before that, I'll request Badri sir and the panel, because today is a very special day, because we are going to release Deepak Patnaik's book. That book is on governance. So we'll formally launch the book in online mode. Then we can start the session. Then we'll start the session. So let me share. I think Badri sir already showing the cover. Let me share the book cover page. So this is the book cover page written by Deepak Patnaik sir, Engaging with the Governance, a Discourse. So really it will a great help for the future civil servant who are trying to understand governance in a better way. A better book ହେଇପାରିବ, and definitely will request today sir to share his experience and the thoughts about this book latter part of this discussion. So with this, I welcome all of you, sir, for this session. And let me first request Anusha ma'am to share some of her thoughts before starting the session. Anusha ma'am, over to you.
ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ପ୍ରଣାମ। ଆଜି ମୋର ସୌଭାଗ୍ୟ ଯେ ବିଶିଷ୍ଟ ଅତିଥି ମାନଙ୍କ ଗହଣରେ ମୁଁ ଆଜି ଗୋଟେ ବଡ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ କାମ ମତେ ବିବେକ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ସେ ବହିଟିକି ଇନାଗୁରେଟ କରିବାକୁ। ପୁଣି ସେ ସାଧାରଣ ବହି ନୁହେଁ, ସେଟା ହଉଛି ଏକ ମୂଲ୍ୟବାନ ପୁସ୍ତକ ଯାହାକୁ ମତେ ଇନାଗୁରେଟ କରିବାକୁ କୁହାଯାଇଛି। ଏଥିରେ ମୋର ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ମୁଁ ବହିକି ପଢିନି, ଜଷ୍ଟ ଖାଲି ଗୋଟେ ଆଖି ପକେଇଥିଲି, କିନ୍ତୁ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଡେଡିକେସନ ସେ ଡେଡିକେଟ କରିଛନ୍ତି ମୋ ସ୍ୱାମୀଙ୍କୁ, ଯିଏକି ତାଙ୍କର ବହୁତ କ୍ଲୋଜ ଫ୍ରେଣ୍ଡ ଥିଲେ, ବହୁତ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଭଲ ପାଉଥିଲେ, ସେ ବି ତାଙ୍କୁ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ପାଉଥିଲେ। ତ ମୁଁ ଏତେ ବହି ଲେଖିଛି, 15 ଖଣ୍ଡ ଓଡିଆ ବହି ସାହିତ୍ୟ ଲେଖିଛି, ସେଥିରେ ଡେଡିକେସନ କେବେ କାହା କରିନି, ମୋ ଶ୍ୱଶୁର ବି କରିନାହାନ୍ତି। କିନ୍ତୁ ଏଇଟା ମତେ ଏତେ ଭାବପ୍ରବଣ ହେଇଗଲି ମୁଁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଦେଖିଲି ତାଙ୍କ ଡେଡିକେସନ ଚାପ୍ଟରଟା, ସେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ପ୍ରଭାତ କୁମାର ନନ୍ଦକୁ ଡେଡିକେଟ କରିଛନ୍ତି। ସେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ପାଉଥିଲେ, କେହି କାହାକୁ ପାଖ ଛାଡୁ ନଥିଲେ, ସବୁବେଳେ ପାଖେ ପାଖେ ଥିଲେ। ତେବେ ସେ OPSC ର ଚେୟାରମ୍ୟାନ ଥିଲାବେଳେ ଇଏ ଥିଲେ ମେମ୍ବର, ପ୍ରଭାତ ଚନ୍ଦ୍ର ଥିଲେ ମେମ୍ବର, ତାପରେ ସେଠୁର ଯେତେବେଳେ ରିକ୍ରୁଟମେଣ୍ଟ ବୋର୍ଡରେ ଥିଲେ ବି ଥିଲେ ମେମ୍ବର। ଯୁଆଡେ ଯାଆନ୍ତି ଆମ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ନେଇ ଯାଆନ୍ତି, ପଛେ ପଛେ ସବୁବେଳେ ଥାନ୍ତି, ବହୁତ ଭଲ ପାଆନ୍ତି, ଆମ ଘରକୁ ଆସନ୍ତି ବିବେକ ବାବୁ। ସେଇ ଦୃଷ୍ଟିରୁ ଦେଖିଲେ ଡେଡିକେସନ ଟା ମତେ ହଠାତ୍ କିନା ମୁଁ ଇମୋସନାଲ ହେଇଗଲି ଦେଖିକିରି, କାହିଁକିନା ସିଏ ଥିଲେ ଏତେ ଖୁସି ହେଇଥାନ୍ତେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଡେଡିକେଟ କରାହେଇଛି ବୋଲି। ସେଇଟା ମୋ ମନରେ ବହୁତ ମୁଁ ବିବେକଙ୍କୁ ସେଇଆ କହିଲି, ବହୁତ ମତେ ଖୁସି ଲାଗୁଛି। ଆଉ ସେ ଦେଖିଥିଲେ ପୁରା ବିଭୋର ହେଇଯାଇଥାନ୍ତେ, କାରଣ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଡେଡିକେଟ କରାହେଇଛି ବହି। ବିବେକ କରିଛନ୍ତି ବିଶେଷତଃ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ପାଆନ୍ତି, ତେଣୁ ପରେ ବହି ବିଷୟରେ କିଛି କହିବାର ନାହିଁ। ବହି ଏତେ ମୂଲ୍ୟବାନ ବହି, ସେଟା ସମସ୍ତେ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଯୋଉମାନେ IAS ଆଗକୁ ଯୋଉମାନେ କରିବେ, ଯୋଉମାନେ ଧର ପଲିଟିକାଲ ସାଇନ୍ସରେ PhD କରିବେ, ଏଇ ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଏଟା ଏସେନ୍ସିଆଲ ହବ। ସବୁ ଉପରେ 14ଟା ଟପିକ ଅଛି, ସେଥିରେ ସବୁ ଉପରେ ବିବେକ ବହୁତ ସୁନ୍ଦର ଭାବରେ ତା ସବୁ ଆସ୍ପେକ୍ଟ ଉପରେ ସେ କଭର କରି ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି। ତାମିଲନାଡୁ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ଆଉ ଯାହା ଯାହା ମିଡିଆ ପବ୍ଲିକ ସବୁ ଉପରେ କଭର କରିଛନ୍ତି। ତେଣୁ ସେଇଟା ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ପଢିବାର କଥା, ବହୁତ ମୂଲ୍ୟବାନ। ତେଣୁ ସେଇ ବହିଟା ବି ଆଙ୍କୁ ଡେଡିକେଟ କରାଯାଇଛି, ସେଥିପାଇଁ ମୁଁ ବିବେକଙ୍କୁ କୃତଜ୍ଞତା ଜଣାଉଛି। ସେଥିପାଇଁ ମୁଁ ବହୁତ କୃତଜ୍ଞତା ଉପରେ। ଆଉ ବାକି IAS ଏକାଡେମୀର ଅନଙ୍ଗ ବାବୁ, ଯୋଉମାନେ ସବୁ ମୂଲ୍ୟବାନ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତିତ୍ୱ ଏଠି ରହିଛନ୍ତି, ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ମୋର ପ୍ରଣାମ, ମୋର କୃତଜ୍ଞତା ଜଣାଉଛି। ଯେ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ଜିନିଷଟେ ହଉଛି। ଇଏ ଥିଲେ ଏଠି ବସିଥାନ୍ତେ, ଦେଖିଥାନ୍ତେ, ଖୁସି। ତାଙ୍କୁ ବହିଟା ମୁଁ ଦେଖେଇବି, ମୋର ଦୃଢ ବିଶ୍ୱାସ ସେ ନିଜେ ଅନୁଭବ କରିପାରୁଥିବେ ଯେ ବହିଟା ମତେ ବିବେକ ଦେଇଛି, ଡେଡିକେଟ କରିଛି ବୋଲି। ତେଣୁ ମୁଁ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଦେଖେଇବି ଯେ ବହିଟା ତମକୁ ବିବେକ ଡେଡିକେଟ କରିଛନ୍ତି। ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ମତେ ବିବେକ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଏଥିରେ ସାର କରିଛନ୍ତି, କହିଲେ ଆପଣ ସେଟାକୁ ଇନାଗୁରେଟ କରିବେ। ଆଉ ମନା କରିପାରିଲିନି। ତେଣୁ ମୋର ଆଜି ଭାଗ୍ୟ, ସୌଭାଗ୍ୟ ଯେ ମୁଁ ଆପଣ ମାନଙ୍କ ଗହଣରେ ଆଜି ଉପସ୍ଥିତ ରହି, ଏଡେ ବଡ ବଡ ବିଶିଷ୍ଟ ଅତିଥି ମାନଙ୍କ ଗହଣରେ ମୋ ନାଁଟା ରହିଛି। ସେଥିପାଇଁ ମତେ ବହୁତ ଗର୍ବ ଲାଗୁଛି। ମୁଁ ବିଶେଷ କରି ବିବେକଙ୍କୁ ବହୁତ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦଉଛି, ବହୁତ କୃତଜ୍ଞ।
Thank you so much, ma'am.
ଏଇ ବଡ ପବିତ୍ର କାମରେ ମୁଁ ବହୁତ କିଛି ଇଏ ଲାଗୁଛି, ମତେ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ଲାଗୁଛି। ତ ଖାଲି ଗୋଟେ ସ୍ମୃତି ହେଇକିରି ରହିଯିବ ଏଇଟା ମୋ ଇଏରେ। ବଡ କଥା ଯେ ବିବେକ ଏଇଟା ଉତ୍ସର୍ଗ କଲେ, ଏଟାକୁ ମୁଁ ରଖିବି, ଆଉ ତାଙ୍କ ଫଟୋ ପାଖରେ ହିଁ ରଖିବି। ତାଙ୍କୁ ଆତ୍ମା ତାଙ୍କର ଶାନ୍ତି ପାଇବ, ସେଇଆ ମୁଁ କହିବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଛି। ମୋର ଆଉ କିଛି କହିବାର ନାହିଁ। ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ମୋର ପ୍ରଣାମ, ବହୁତ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ।
Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you so much, Vivek sir, writing this book. How dedicated ଆପଣ ଯେତେବେଳେ OPSC ର ଚେୟାରମ୍ୟାନ ଥିଲେ, and OPSC ର ଜଣେ ମେମ୍ବରଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଏତେ ଭଲ ପାଇବା ଆଉ ଡେଡିକେଟେଡ କରିବା। ସୋ ଏଇଟା ସବୁବେଳେ ଆମକୁ, ଆମେ ବହୁତ ଜିନିଷ ଶିଖିବା ଦରକାର କି ଲିଡର ସବୁବେଳେ give the credit to the team. So really sir, we the younger generation should learn lot of things from you. Really appreciate. I guess.
Just ବର୍ଷେ ହେଇଛି ତାଙ୍କ ଯିବାର।
I guess. So now I'll request Vivek Patnaik sir to share his thoughts and about the books. What are the important things about the books, and after that, some of the thoughts related to international governance. I'll request Vivek sir to share his thought. You can unmute, sir. Sir, mute his. Yes,
Hello.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now you are audible, sir.
Can you request Badri Sarangi, the publisher, to speak a few words? You have.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Also, I'll request before Vivek sir, I'll request Badri sir to share some of the important points related to the books and his thoughts. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Good evening, distinguished guests, respected dignitaries, and friends and well-wishers. It is a great privilege for us to publish and present the book Engaging with the Governance, a Discourse, a collection of 14 essays by Sri Vivek Patnaik. For a publisher, bringing out a book is not only about printing and publishing, it is about recognizing ideas that deserve to reach readers. We believe this book is important because it encourages us to understand governance and engage with the issue around it. Drawing from his long experience as a bureaucrat and his exposure to different parts of the world, Sri Patnaik brings valuable thoughts and insights to this volume. We hope this book will go beyond the bookshelf and encourage readers to think, discuss, question, and engage with the subject of governance. It gives us immense pleasure to formally release Engaging with the Governance, a Discourse. Congratulations, Sri Patnaik, and our very best wishes for the success of the book. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Definitely, we'll also request you to, we can take some of the books and some of the students who are preparing for the civil servants. It will be a great help for all of them. Definitely, I'll
Sure.
request all of the future civil servant who want to read about much more about governance. They can go through the book, and I'll share the number with of Badri sir in the group, and later they can contact and take the book.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I'll request Vivek Patnaik sir to talk about the books and share his thoughts related to international governance and other topics. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Am I also visible?
Yes, sir. You are visible, sir.
I'm grateful to Madam Anusha having released the book, which is dedicated to Prabhat Nanda, her late husband, who was my classmate for 70 years ago, and a colleague when I was chairman of the Public Service Commission 2 decades ago. He was an eminent and dedicated, committed engineer, civil servant, with immaculate integrity, held the constitutional position with great dignity. He was the son of Sri Ramakrishna Nanda, an icon of education in Odisha, now called Odisha, in the last century. His periodical for children called Sansara, started since the 60s of the last century, continues to serve young girls and boys till today due to hard work and utmost sincerity of Prabhat and his wife, Odisha. Prabhat encouraged me to write on contemporary issues. My first 3 books were published by Sansara Press. I pay homage to Prabhat and may his noble soul rest in peace. This book has the foreword from Dr. and Professor Jugal Mishra, a well-known scholar in the field of political science, who has compiled two masterpieces, one on Madhusudan Das, other on Biju Patnaik. I wish him excellent health and long, productive career. The book, a compilation of articles and lectures written and delivered a decade ago, have been overtaken by passage of time. And according to Sri Sarangi, to whom I'm deeply indebted for publishing this book, he has said the book is relevant in the context of history and present development. The cover of the book looks very attractive, but I would caution readers not to judge the book by its cover, as they say in English. Having said all that, I'll briefly touch upon the theme of the webinar. The cross-border trade and business and movement of people have been growing for centuries, with maritime transport, road and railway transport, and with air transport. The world has shrunk in distance. The telecommunication and internet have made the globe virtually borderless. Along with these developments, international law, by way of multilateral treaties, plurilateral treaties, and bilateral treaties, have made public international institutions, and in addition, international law is based upon customs, practices, usages, and further expanded through writings of eminent jurists and landmark judicial decisions. And finally, through the principles of natural justice. International jurisprudence has become robust. The growth of international institutions started from the time of the establishment of International Telegraphic Union in the 19th century, now called International Telecommunication Union. It was followed by the establishment of Universal Postal Union, when the postal service spread across the world. The first political international institution was established with the League of Nations, which, as you all know, collapsed as the world entered the Second World War. And it was replaced by the United Nations. Along with the United Nations, many other institutions also came. International Civil Aviation Organization, International Maritime Organization, World Meteorological Organization, World Health Organization, Food and Agriculture Organization, World Tourism Organization, World Trade Organization, and International Atomic Energy, etc. They have grown based on multilateral treaties. The sovereign countries in the world have signed these multilateral treaties. When people travel by air from one end of the world to the other, they fly over many nations, getting air navigation support from many different countries. When flights land at different airports, they use runways. And unless there is uniformity of standards in runway construction, landing will not be safe. Therefore, international regulations play a very big role with regard to air transport. If this is true of air transport, it is equally true for air navigation. It is true for international telecommunication. As you know, ITU allocates frequencies to different sectors. So this is how the international institutions have grown. The most important international institution that we always see is United Nations, established again by the Charter of United Nations, which is a multilateral treaty. WHO has created rules relating to international health emergency, which countries are required to follow. Particularly during the COVID period, it was very significant. Role of international atomic energy in matters of inspection and rules of guidance are well known, and often they are mentioned in the present time because of the war in the Middle East. One biggest challenge to the human civilization is environmental degradation, along with global warming. Hole in the ozone layer, risk of submergence of many islands and coastal areas with the melting of glaciers. United Nations Environmental Program has been established under the United Nations, and many protocols and agreements have come into force, which the sovereign states are given assent to prevent degradation of environment. International law is no longer the vanishing point of jurisprudence as used to be described in classrooms a century ago. Although there are wars in different parts of the world, including civil wars and genocide, international law still exists. There was an article in Hindu on 11th August under the title, "Do not write the obituary of international law," yet written by one Jyoti Singh, a Delhi-based advocate. Just as domestic laws are violated by individuals, citizens, and also other residents in a country, so also they are violated. International law is violated by nation states. So violation of international law does not make international law dead, doesn't make it dead. It is still alive. Just as violation of municipal law doesn't make municipal law dead. This the people should recognize. And international law has expanded today to include individuals. Previously, international law was only related to nations, sovereign states. Today, it has extended to even individuals. The International Criminal Court has come into being to punish individuals who violate human rights. International sanction can be initiated against states. They are distinctly different from sanctions imposed by individual states, notably United States. Actually, the sanction imposed by United States and countries is not according to international law. It is based on law of United States, to which other sovereign states are not subject to, are not supposed to be subjected to. But because of the power of the United States, people obey. But true sanction can be imposed on the states when they violate Charter of the United Nations or international law by United Nations Security Council, endorsed by the General Assembly. International audit of international airports for safety and security has been established since the beginning of 21st century, and they have come to stay. If there is no compliance to the audit, defaulting states may run the risk of avoidance of other states from flying into their airports. So the role of international institutions have played a part in governance of international order through establishing a law, regulations, or multilateral treaties. The Charter of the United Nations was made along with other multilateral treaties which have established other international bodies to understand the connectivity among the institutions. Incidentally, I'd like to say Article 51 of the Constitution of India requires the state to observe international law. Article 51 is a part of the directive principles of state policy. Subject is very wide. It can be a topic by itself for a webinar. I will request Mr. Raut
So,
in terms of having organized a webinar exclusively on the subjects of governance of international institutions. Thank you very much.
thank you so much, sir, for your insightful guidance. Actually, today the world is full of contradiction and full of conflict. We see a lot of things are happening in the international water also. We see how the Strait of Hormuz is the uh, talking point of the world right now. No one is obeying the international law related to maritime laws. So you are talking about all the international governance, whether it may be international maritimes or international trade organization, also WTO. All these things is very, very relevant for contemporary world. So now I'll request Ramesh Mishra sir to share his thoughts and points related to this topic, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Justice Anaga Patnaik sir, Sri Vivek Patnaik, and all other distinguished members in this panel. I start with congratulating Mr. Patnaik for releasing his book, Issues of Governance, Role of Institutions, to understand the nuances of thought that he has reflected in his book. I will give a few thoughts on governance in the context of our country or other democracies, parliamentary democracies, rather than on the international governance situation. Now, first thing is electoral democracy is admittedly the essential structural backbone of a democracy now. But we have to understand that it is not a sufficient condition for good governance. Majoritarianism is the working ethos of an elected government. Vicious form of majoritarianism or a milder form of majoritarianism. But majoritarianism cannot represent adequately the interests of several constituencies in the country. It may lead to various excesses also. So, justice and equity may be jeopardized if there are no independent and impartial bodies to keep the potential or actual excesses under check. I remember Madison, James Madison, one of the main architects of the United States Constitution, had said that there are two challenges in making of a government. First, you have to adequately empower the instruments or the bodies of governance so that they can function effectively. Secondly, you have to make institutional arrangements that will exercise checks and balances to prevent any misuse of powers. Has to look at, so every government two kinds of organizations. So elected governments representatives by themselves cannot ensure good governance, and strong supportive institutions based upon meritocracy may have to be relied upon to ensure that there is good governance and there is no misuse of power, there is no excess over the persons who are not adequately represented in the legislatures. So these functions are discharged by the institutions. So role of institutions comes to play in the domestic sector in this particular way. I will give a quotation from Francis Fukuyama. He is a great political scientist. He wrote, the principle of effective government is meritocracy. The principle of democracy is popular participation. These two principles can be made to work together, but there will always be an underlying tension between them. So, when I read this, I recalled several incidents in our public life, in my own personal career, where we have experienced such tensions. Now, both popular participation and meritocracy, both are required in the functioning of governance systems. And if there is a tension, that tension is inevitable, and that is also required for the health of the system. It cannot be avoided completely. I will just briefly mention, which every one of us knows, that our independent institutions can be started from the judiciary, the most primary independent institution, the highest body to enforce citizens' fundamental rights and the rule of law. Basic structure, as elaborated by the Kesavananda Bharati Judgment of 1973, includes this independence of the judiciary. Since the Supreme Court has power of judicial review, the ultimate test of constitutionality of legislative measures lies with the Supreme Court. And they are also empowered through various writs to enforce the fundamental rights and keep the executive actions within the precincts of law and the Constitution. And we therefore hope, we Indians always look forward to the Supreme Court, the high courts, the various other courts, for helping the governance to be on the rail. That is something which everyone knows. I just wanted to mention. Equally important is the role of the Election Commission, and Article 324 says the provisions of the Election Commission to be in charge of superintendence, direction and control of the preparation of the electoral roll and conduct of all elections. To the President, to the Parliament, to the state legislatures, to the offices of President and the Vice President of India. We can well imagine how important it is for the integrity of our electoral system to have absolutely impartial members in the Election Commission. Today it is the multi-member body of 3 members. During the period 1990-96, T.N. Seshan, who was Chief Election Commissioner, very effectively used his office to bring about discipline in the electoral process and among the political players. In the year 1995, when the election process was on, he had come to visit Odisha. That time I was RDC Central Division, Commissioner Central Division at Cuttack, and I had the opportunity of interacting with him for a day. Let me confess that I was very impressed by the no-nonsense approach of that gentleman. It was a little difficult for me to first tackle him because I was a little scared of his image. But later on, I found that he was a very affectionate person. And at the same time, he used to mince no words to tell you the law, how to deal with people and situations. Then another nonsense Chief Election Commissioner came. There are disputes and controversies about everybody in public office. But from 2001 to 2004, his gentleman was James B. Lingdo. He was again known for his exemplary integrity. Although I had no personal interaction with Mr. Lingdo. I just wanted to mention that such election commissioners are not seen these days. Such election commissioners of this reputation, this kind of strength of character to withstand pressures, they are not seen today. And we hope that we will always have election commissioners of this kind of stature to guide our democracy. Now, Union Public Service Commission and State Public Service Commission, as per the provisions of Article 315, they are established to conduct exams for appointment to the services of the Union and services of the states, respectively, in the state public service commission, they recruit the civil servants for the state. Now, this function is directly related to Article 16 of the Constitution, which provides for equality of opportunity to all citizens in matters of employment under the state, without any discrimination of any caste, any gender, any religion, without any discrimination. So the effective manifestation of this fundamental right is being done through the Union Public Service Commission and State Public Service Commission. It is again something that we expect that the UPSC and other PSCs conduct their functions with great degree of integrity and impartiality, and do not fail the young men and women of the country who are aspiring to get into the various government services. Another institution is the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, which is provided in Article 148 of the Constitution. The reports of the C&AG relating to the accounts of the Union are submitted to the President by the C&AG, and further laid by the President in both houses of the Parliament. So one can understand how they function as the watchdog of the government expenditures. Central Vigilance Commission. It is not a constitutional body. It is a statutory body created by a statute, supervising the functions of the CBI and other anti-corruption agencies. Now, these examples of the institutions that I have cited, they would be very effective when people of great integrity and character are recruited to these posts. They should be above any political consideration. Since I was a civil servant, I would say something about the civil services. Because strictly speaking, the permanent civil service is not an independent institution. So one may take it as an institution or not an institution, because the civil servants work directly under the political executive. So they cannot be called independent. They carry out the orders of the political masters. But I personally feel that they cannot blindly implement the orders. They cannot blindly carry out the orders. They have a great responsibility to see if the orders are in conformity with the constitutional provisions and the law. And if they find that the minister's decision or direction is a prima facie violation of the provisions of law, it is their duty to resubmit the matter to the minister for seeking a review of the order. And in our times, I have retired long back, many such instances have been faced by myself and many other colleagues, where the matters were resubmitted to the minister, in some cases resulting in success, in some cases resulting in failure. And sometimes you may have to submit the matter twice, because if you feel that the minister is knowingly ignoring your advice, you may have to resubmit it again. But you must not leave it like that, because the responsibility of the civil servant never ceases with only getting an approval from the minister. In the government of India, under the rules of business of procedure, the secretary of the department is responsible that the functions of the department are discharged according to the rules. Secretary has been mentioned. In the general financial rules, secretary is mentioned. It is not the minister who is mentioned. So the permanent civil service has to understand their important role in the system. I have been associated with the formulations of the Administrative Reforms Commission, the second ARC, which submitted the report from the year 2005 to 2009. 16 reports they submitted, 15 reports, and 1/16th volume was the summary of all the reports. The 10th report related to refurbishing of personnel administration. So I will just mention to you how the ARC looked at this problem. The ARC writes, if a policy that is being formulated is perceived by the civil servants to be against public interest, this responsibility is, his responsibility is to convince the political executive about the adverse implications of the policy. If the minister overrules him, then there is little that the civil servant can do apart from making his views clearly mentioned in the file and leave the matter to the judgment of the C&AG, judiciary, parliament, and ultimately the people of India. He has to first mention his view. He cannot leave it like that. So ARC also has mentioned it very clearly that this is how the civil servant should function. A conscientious civil servant must not take the easy and cozy path of surrender. It is a tension-free world for the civil servant if at the end of the day he has carried out all orders of the minister. But that tension cannot be resolved by surrendering easily. While the political executive is they are responsible to the people, they have got the mandate. The civil service is that way protected. So as in England they said, civil service flourishes under ministerial responsibility. Bureaucracy flourishes under ministerial responsibility. But the civil servant's role is clearly discernible, and whenever I have found in Government of India an inquiry is made or something is investigated, the civil servant is first identified as the culprit. So there is also a great risk for a civil servant to carry out illegal orders. Being a part of the permanent civil service for more than 40 years, I would say that the most important principle is neutrality, political neutrality of a civil servant. Now, the political neutrality has been to a large extent eroded. That is the bane of the system. And now the political masters across political parties over the years have wanted that the bureaucrat must swear unquestioned loyalty to the political master. This is a very wrong precedent for governance, and most of the issues of good governance are arising out of this failure of a balance between the political executive and the permanent executive. These conflicts should be resolved, and the constitutionality of decisions, they must belong both to the political executive as well as the permanent executive. Another trend, which I must say with a great deal of lament, that the senior bureaucrats are fast losing their intellectual and financial integrity. It has declined. Not that it is not there, it has declined. And when you have no intellectual and financial integrity, you will have to bow down to the orders of the political master. You will have no backbone to fight with them. So the rectitude of the civil servant today has been compromised. I am not going to comment that previously it was great, today it is not there. It's not like that. It is declining. Some people say that it has declined in all walks of life. Well, there are various explanations. But being a man from the system, I have seen to what extent it has declined. To what extent people are not able to speak up the truth. To what extent they are afraid of differing with the views of a master. So that tradition today has put a blot on the civil service. Now, Sardar Patel, the first Home Minister of India, we call him the guardian angel of civil service. And what he said in the Constituent Assembly debate, he said, it needs hardly to be emphasized that an efficient, disciplined, and contented civil service assured of its prospect as a result of diligent and honest work is a sine qua non of sound administration. He encouraged the bureaucrats working with him to offer their opinion very clearly in the file, without fear or favor. And he has said, on record he has said, today my secretary can write a note opposed to my views. I have given that freedom to all my secretaries. I have told them, if you do not give your honest opinion in fear that it will displease your minister, please then you better go. I will get another secretary. I will never be displeased over a frank expression of opinion. So look at the kind of authority with which he has said and the kind of confidence that he created among the bureaucrats. No other minister in independent India has held such an exalted view of the civil service. Ultimately, you may have very high institutions, but at the ordinary level, day-to-day level, the civil servant, starting from the bottom to the top, is the mainstay of good governance. Because if the civil service is efficient and equitable and just, there will be hardly any grievances left for the people to approach the various bigger panels. I am emphasizing that point because I have had my experience in the civil service, not that all other, you see, all other institutions are very important. But if day-to-day activity is not correct, if the Tahsildar office, Revenue Inspector's office, cleanly, then there will be grievances galore in the system. So elected governments and meritocracy, bureaucratic institutions, they work in synergy for good governance. They have a synergy of efficiency, of synergy of prompt delivery of services to the people. Another thing we have to remember that institutions matter more than personalities, and power must remain accountable to something larger than itself. Then have leaders, have political leaders, any bureaucratic leaders who not only exercise their leadership, give the direction, but also strengthen the institution along with that, not weaken the institution. Now there are several other things, but I think I'll have to stop here. You see, imagine that this recruitment, open recruitment, is a relatively modern development in the world. You see, large parts of Europe, like Turkey, like Italy, they were all run by patronage systems, clientele systems. And even in Britain also, even USA, everywhere. You see, historically speaking, 1858 in India was a watershed year. When the direct British rule of the Indian Dominion came to the Queen, they found necessary to have a sound civil service to run India. So the Indian civil service was prepared on the basis of the Northcote Trevelyan Report of 1854, which was only a 20-page document. 20-page document. On the basis of that, they created the whole structure of recruitment to the ICS. So this was the most radical departure for the system of governance in the country. When we come to institutions, we may have to remember the book Why Nations Fail by Darren Asimoglu and James Robinson. They say two kinds of political and economic institutions they have classified. One is inclusive institutions. We are talking about inclusive institutions here. And they have another set of institutions, extractive institutions. Like, for example, he has compared South Korea and North Korea. So institutions could be both inclusive and extractive. In the Indian context or a democratic context, we are looking at inclusive institutions which takes care of the interests of all sections of the society and takes care of the public interest and doesn't propagate private interest in contrast to public interest. Now, in dictatorial countries, of course, there are institutions, but those institutions work for the powers that be. They do not work for the people. With that, I just gave some of the comments which I had. Institutions must start improving, must function in a stronger and more forthright manner in respect of our country. That is why almost all enlightened people in the country, they feel that they should improve. The civil service aspirants who are probably present in this group, now I wish them that they should succeed in the various examinations for civil service by their merit and hard work. At the same time, if God willing, when they are recruited to various positions, they should develop and exhibit the human values that will make them good civil servants. You see, it is not important to be an IAS officer or IPS officer, IFS. There are many. It is important to be a good IAS officer. Good IAS officer means having qualities of head and heart, having intellect and compassion. So they should also develop their career in this manner and not rest on the laurels once they get. Yes, I get a bungalow, I get a gadi, I get the Naukar, Chakar, and I get secure promotions. That is not the aim of joining any administrative service or any public service in the country. Now, thank you very much for listening to you.
Sir, thank you so much, sir, for your thoughts. बहुत actually हममान पे यही भलिया अपन जेतबेले closely देखिछंदी and already you have lived that life for 40 years. और जो कथा अपन कहिले कि it is not always माने minister को कथरे हाँ मिलेगा जोटा wrong सेठी you can differ also, and you also give the example of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, how he have given the freedom to their secretary. So really we'll also learn जो माने future civil servant हो चंदी. So खाली civil servant हवा कथा नहीं, but a good civil servant केमती हवा तापाई सर जो suggestion देले जो experience share करले definitely it will help all of us. And हमें ethics रे जो हमें पढ़ो चे हमें गोटे particular topic मिलू चे ethics, which is very important सर जो कथा उड़ा कहिले to implement in the ethics. हमें example दो चे TN शासन का कथा किंतु सर practical कहिले जे अंको संगे one day he has spent and in the experience till I thought definitely ARC report or everything. Thank you so much, sir, for your views and for your insightful thoughts. Definitely हम समस्तन को एटा helpful करियो. So now I will request Ambassador Dr. Malay Misra sir to put his thoughts and also his speech. Over to you, sir. Malay sir.
Good evening, everybody. Deepak,
Yes,
am I
sir. You
audible?
are audible and clearly visible also.
Justice Anangababu, Vivek Patnaik, sir, my distinguished colleagues on the panel, all listeners who are on the line, a very good evening and a very happy day to all of us, because today a very important event is taking place, namely that Vivek sir's book on governance, which I must confess I haven't read. We haven't got the contents of this book so far, but only a glimpse of it. So I'll take the book from you later and perhaps benefit from it. But I know the thrust, because I know you as a distinguished civil servant, both in India and abroad. You have brought laurels for the country. You have distinguished yourself in delivering public goods, in acquitting yourself in the best of civil service traditions. So thank you very much, sir, for including me in this discussion on your book and mostly on governance. We all are a part of governance. We were, while we were in active service, we were. Now we are supposed to be ruminating on our days in the service. We are supposed to be public intellectuals, commentators on the social, political, economic scenes, and giving our views for whatever they are worth. I thank also Deepak for giving this forum to us from his academy. He's doing very well. He's training a good number of people to get into the state level services. Now, people have said so far quite a few things on governance. I don't have to add much to what has been said so far for lack of time. Because the slot I got, if I recollect, was 6:35 to 6:45. And I got to speak at about 6:55 or 7. So my slot is gone actually. And even Mr. S.N. Mishra, Professor Mishra's slot is also gone. But anyway, he will forgive me because I am now trespassing on his territory. Just a few things I will note and then I'll stop speaking. I think everybody of us here as well as outside have seen this momentous development which happened last month, precisely during the month of July, when the government was brought to its knees and had to come down from its high pulpit and accede to the demand, to the singular demand of Gen Z, younger generation, supposedly from 15 to 29 years, constituting about 37% of India's population, by surrendering the education minister. That happened on the 25th of July after about 40 days, or rather 36 days of a protest movement which happened in the heart of Delhi in Jantar Mantar. We have to draw a lot of lessons from there, particularly in governance. And the biggest lesson I learned was that we were told that governance proceeds on two very important pillars. The two pillars are, number one, accountability, that people who govern are supposed to be accountable to the people who make them govern. In other words, the people elected have to be responsible and accountable to the people who elected them. But we saw during this latest protest movement that that was in serious deficit. The first deficit was accountability deficit. And when the students deemed the education minister to be accountable for all the leakages which were happening in so many exams, and above all in the NEET UG paper, which had to be cancelled, and second time it was held, and in the process about 25 students had to commit suicide. The world was not the same. We saw also when leaders or the leadership remains accountable to the people, a trust develops between the people and the leaders. That trust has been broken, perhaps irretrievably, perhaps irredeemably, which means people do not trust the government anymore. What could be a bigger slap on the face of governance? We know the theoretical aspects of governance. In fact, if I recall, when the present government came to power, the first slogan was less of government and more of governance. But we have seen the opposite happen. We have seen less and less of governance and more of government spreading in every field of human life, in the sense the institutions which are the backbone of governance have been compromised and been used on top of it, misutilized to seek damage to the system. That couldn't be a bigger insult to what we have understood so far as good governance. Obviously, this has repercussions in the international domain. I know Vivek sir is a great votary of international law, but international law is the basis of international governance. The system of international law, if we take United Nations system, has also broken down. Why? Because democracy all over the world is in retreat. Democracy, as the VDEM Institute of Sweden has recently done a survey, it has found that over 80 countries are no longer democratic. They have turned to various shades of autocracy. And another concomitant factor is the growth of extreme right politics. That has also come up in a big way. So we have seen a correlation between extreme right policies, which some intellectuals have been branding as neo-fascism, something like that. So the neo-fascism and the erosion of democracy have happened simultaneously in the world today. And that has been the biggest setback to international governance. So what we knew as the rules-based order promoted by the United States in a big way has perhaps disappeared in the world, in the West Asia. Today, the rules-based order no longer operates. The same country which had promoted this rules-based order are flouting all the rules of order. They have attacked Iran not once but twice in the middle of negotiations over Iran's nuclearization process. And what did they get? At the end of it, the nuclear discussion has faded into the background. The latest, the proposals which Iran has now put on the table on the 8th of August has no mention of the nuclear question at all. On the contrary, it has brought out their demands which America has to fulfill because America's coercive edge is no longer there. They have run short of munitions to sustain the war anymore. And Mr. Trump is very likely to get a major setback in the forthcoming midterm elections in November this year. And Democrats, by now the indications show that they are going to get more and more seats in both houses, and Republicans will have a retreat. That is the direct consequence. And of course, if the war, as it has been showing so far, goes in favor of Iran, which it has, then Mr. Trump will have no place to hide. Of course, the latest report was that he hid on a plane. He changed in a delivery cart while he was coming from Ankara to London. He boarded a delivery cart to go into another plane and then fled. That would be the shape of the leader of the free world. Coming back to certain things which are happening in India, which has a reverberation in the international field. The first thing, and it is very current, the FCRA bill, which is now being put in the parliament to very serious objection, because it is believed that the bill is aimed at minorities. It is being targeted at minorities. And of course, everybody knows that this government does not have a very sympathetic view towards the minorities of India. It is by and large a majoritarian government. I need not go further on this issue. But what has happened on this FCRA? FCRA, the bill, has had tremendous repercussions in the global arena now. There are many congressmen who are now agitating against this bill, particular bill, and they are telling their government that stop India from passing this bill. And as we all know, there is a State Department annual report on the status of minorities in India, which is going to have a scathing paragraph on this subject so far. This is one effect of one particular aspect of governance, how we are completely going above certain things which are not done in a good governance setup. The second thing, what I feel, is this question of tariffs on us. Despite our extremely close strategic relationship with America, and despite the fact that we went along with Israel and America just 2 days before the war started, which was in a way surrendering of our strategic autonomy and putting our foreign policy on the nettle, America has been behaving very, very weird with us, particularly Mr. Trump. He has been increasing his weaponizing tariffs. And the latest is that this Graham bill, this Lindsey Graham bill, Lindsey Graham was a big votary of US support to Ukraine. And unfortunately, he passed away while he was on a visit to Ukraine. But his wife took up this bill in the Congress, and the bill is now in the Congress that the 5-6 countries who have benefited most from Russian oil should be penalized with an additional 100% tariffs. So in addition to what tariffs India had already got, another 100% tariffs is coming our way. And we have to prove that our importation of oil from Russia is going down, and at the cost of importing huge amounts of oil and gas from the United States. In fact, our government has already conceded that we have augmented our imports of gas to the extent of 67% from the US during this year. So our foreign policy is imbalanced at this moment, and our priorities are lost. The edge we had got in the world and the moral ground on which we stood after our independence has perhaps been removed. And India today has to be kind of in a subsidiary role, in a secondary role, and leadership of the global south, which was much tom-tommed before, is now no longer applicable to India. It is the bare fact. So there are many factors happening within India which are affecting the image, the profile, the weight, the gravitas of India and its foreign policy conduct by its leaders. So my concluding point is that we have to be practical, we have to be open-minded, and above all, we have to be critical. I'm sure Vivek sir will appreciate criticality in our discussion, and he will also appreciate that we do not hesitate to call a spade when it is one. So I thank all of you for giving a patient listening to me, and I feel that we are entering a very, very volatile time, very volatile time, and we have to somehow keep the balance of good governance with a restive population, which is no longer believing in the government's credibility, which is no longer believing in the government. The fear that the government was invincible is no longer there. They have gone above that fear. So they are no longer afraid that certain things will happen. We saw that, the brutality which the police used, and where was the governance? Where were the rules? That how do you control the mob? How do you control, a protest? We saw the gruesome scenes of police brutality on the students, and while they were protesting in a most non-violent manner, in a silent manner, we have seen the scenes when they were beaten black and blue with their so-called iron-studded lathis, with their pellet guns, with all kinds of threatening postures. So I don't see that in the present circumstances, governance is going to uphold the sanctity of India or of the Indian government. It is not. You have to have a soul searching on the ground of what is going wrong, and if possible, try to support with the side of reasoning, with the side of good democracy, with the side of constitutionalism, and with the side of justice. I rest my talk here, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for your views, and really you are talking all these ground realities which is happening inside our country and outside our country also. Thank you so much, sir. Now I'll request Professor S.N. Mishra, sir, to put his points and views. Over to you, sir. Sir, are you able to hear us, sir? I think some network issue. Sir, am I audible to all, or any issue from my side? I think sir left.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, sir. So, else I'll request Atanu sir to start his points, and after that again we'll come back and we'll listen to Professor S.N. Mishra after Atanu sir. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Deepak. Honorable Justice Anand Patnaik, Vivek sir, Ramesh sir, Dr. Malay, and Professor Mishra, if he is still online. It's a wonderful opportunity to interact with the youngsters and to be the speaker at the tail end. I have the advantage of wisdom which has been shared by some of the most renowned icons of administration. They come with tremendous amount of experience and on-field knowledge about how the administration works, what are the problems. And looking back at what all these people have said, but firstly let me say why a military man is there in this governance issue. Why Deepak has chosen, what do I bring to the table? You know, that must be a big question mark among the minds of the 120 people who are on listening watch here. Though I am an army man and the military is basically trained for war, as you know, wars happen very infrequently. I mean, the last big war we fought was in 1971. And then we had the Kargil skirmish. And that's it. So say for about last 26 years, there have been no major conflagration in our subcontinent. And so while we prepare for a war, our basic energy and effort goes into a lot of other things which are basically administrative in nature, you know. Apart from administrating our personnel, which run into one of the largest armies in the world with over 11 lakh troops. What we also do is do administrate logistics, administrate infrastructure, build infrastructure in the border areas. As an army, we run our own hospitals, own schools. On almost every facet of maintaining our huge cantonments. Those of you, there may be few because Odisha doesn't have many cantonments. Those of you have gone and seen cantonments, you will see a very different India inside the cantonment once you enter the gates. So there are experiences which overlap what the civil administration has. Of course, it's in a very different field altogether, but definitely.
So,
there
but
are-
we'd like to listen from you about your experience on international humanitarian
Yes.
experience in Lebanon. So,
Yes.
which is very much actually relevant for all of us.
Yes. So,
Yes.
like Vivek sir has said about the importance of international collaboration, international laws, international collaboration, and international institutions, which despite aberrations and despite condemnation by various countries or things like that, a lot of the systems in the world functions today because there is still a lot of collaboration. I went to Lebanon in 2001 when it was just out of almost like 20 years occupation by the Israelis. South Lebanon, south of Litani River, was under physical occupation of Israelis from 1978 to 1998. And it was just about getting its development act together. And I went as the chief humanitarian officer, coordinating various UN agencies and the local administration. I was the intermediary between these two. So the collaborative effort is the key point of this assignment, where organizations like the World Health Organization, the World Food Program, international organizations on human rights, on migration, on the ESCO, Economic Social Council for West Asia, such like apart from the embassies, all the developmental effort used to get channelized. The United Commission, High Commissioner for Refugees, because I had to deal with plenty of refugees at the Israeli-Lebanon borders. So they gave me an opportunity to see how, if you, through collaborative effort, despite barrier of languages, despite barrier of different governments with their own interests, if the developmental effort is focused and responsive to the local needs. I would visit, Lebanon is a very complex country. It's a country with Christians, Shias, and Sunnis. All the three in almost equal percentages. Maybe the Shia population may be a little more now than it was 20 years back, 25 years back. But that is how it is. Almost equally divided between three different communities. Very, I can say, fundamentally fractured society. But in developmental effort, a road cannot simply, go by air and into another township or a village. So it had to pass through the other road. A road to a Sunni village had to pass through a Shia village or a Christian village. So it had to be built that way, and the goods had to be transported from one end to another, from North Lebanon to south of Litani, through all this. So there was a collaborative effort, and it gave me a lot of insight into how, if the intent is right, and if we are able to meet the apprehensions of different parties, interact with them more frequently, we will be able to deliver developmental projects in a time-bound manner. I have also dealt with 28 PLO camps, Palestine Liberation Organization camps, with huge amount of very frustrated young population. We used to fund their hospitals and their schools, run their schools, give them some work permits, give them some projects so that they can, earn some bit of livelihood. So what's important is we have to look at the community at a higher pedestal than the individual. That is the essence of governance. And like Ramesh sir has very clearly said that it doesn't matter at what level of governance you are in. He was emphasizing you don't have to be exactly at the IAS to make a difference. You can be at any level of governance, and I have personal experience from my army headquarter days when I was in the Director General Military Operations as a full colonel, as a director. And 26/11 happened. The Mumbai attack took place. The then NSA, Mr. Shiv Shankar Menon, wrote a crisp letter to the chief of army staff then to say that you do some emergency procurement and let's be prepared for a full-blown situation. So the letter ended up in my desk because I was the director for modernization, manpower, and procurements. I drafted a 5-page long DO, reply DO. Now I was opposed at every level, by my brigadier, then by my major, then by DGMO, saying that the chief is not going to really write a big laundry list of what is missing from army's logistic and or combat inventory. But each of them approved it, and it was on a weekend. And on a Sunday, I got a call from the DGMO that the chief has signed it. It led to emergency meeting called by Mr. Anthony, the defense minister, on Monday. The Mathur Commission committee on procurement of ammunition was constituted, one-man committee. That time he was the additional secretary, later became the first lieutenant governor of Ladakh, apart from being the defense secretary. So what I'm trying to say is that we actually tackled the ammunition shortages in the armed forces in a big way and in a practical way. And therefore, you being at any layer of the governance is not important. What is important is that whatever opportunity comes your way, you will be able to leverage that to deliver results. So whether you are a Tahsildar or you are a ADM or you are a collector, to say that I could have done this only if I was a collector is not the correct approach to administration. Every layer of administration is important, and I was seeing when the people are logging in, there was some name called Ispita Oja. So I was reminded of Chameli Oja, the incident which happened, a month and so back. It really brought out what is, seriously lacking in today's administration. A block development officer who was not a block development officer, he was officiating. He was a Tahsildar, but he also was working as a sub-registrar and was also doing administrator of a temple complex, and there was no, fortunately today, you have video recording and you have social media, so there is not much you can hide. So every ugly thing that was deficient in the administration came out in that incident. The lack of clearing projects by, the video is that the delivery end of developmental projects, and if he doesn't clear projects for the panchayats, it will be very difficult for the panchayat, the sarpanch to do in development. It brought out very important lessons. What I'm trying to tell the students is when these incidents happen, doesn't matter how they're reported, we can draw very important lessons from this and see how governance can be better delivered, how development can be better delivered, how we can, instead of being a reactive or an inert, a very large segment of our administration has become inert. They are not even reacting. But even if you are reactive and not proactive, actually, ideally, administrators should be proactive. We as cantonment administrators, we as the commanders of huge military cantonments, we go around, travel around a lot, and we see if a road patch is bad. All these people who take the road from National Highway to the Patia Road, that junction loop from highway and going on to the Patia junction, that road has been broken for last 3 years. So it must have come to notice of many administrators, many ministers, many senior bureaucrats, many elected members of the BMC, but it remains like that. So we can be, the administrator ideally must be proactive, must be sensitive, and must be able to, reach out and take measures, whatever is in his part. There are plenty of, things we can make a difference to people's life if we have that kind of a sense of service. And that's very important. We, as administrators, most of the people know that we have endemic corruption in India, which, like Rajiv Gandhi had famously said in 1980 that less than 15 paisa per rupee reaches the intended beneficiary. He said that 46 years back. Not much has changed, but yeah, some people can quote the Jan Dhan Aadhaar mobile mode of transferring of benefits, cash handouts to a very large segment of population, which is happening. But that is, of course, it has the other flip side, which is that large amount of our developmental funds are going into, I will say, nurturing a particular constituency or vote bank, rather than empowering our citizens to earn their livelihood. If you put the money into healthcare, into education, into infrastructure, it will be better utilized than doing a jam. So these are the thoughts on today's administrative structure. Ramesh Mishra brought about recalled about TN Session. Why he recalled about TN Session and not a chain of other bureaucrats is because somebody made a difference. He decided that he has to, in this. Otherwise, before him, the Election Commission of India was a largely unknown figure. And he is the man who actually transformed that institution. So institutions are there. Some people really make it functional, make it effective. It is important that they survive from personalities to personalities. Dr. Malay and Dr. Mishra also said the bureaucracy is not impartial, not apolitical. Of course, they will be political. They have to be political because they deal with the political administrators. But at the same time, as long as you keep the public service, public interest in mind, we should be able to do justice to our jobs. With that, I would, convey my best wishes to the aspirants and hope to see them succeed in their endeavors. Thank you very much, Deepak.
Thank you so much, sir, for your thoughts, and also talk about the international experience you have as United Nations humanitarian ground in Lebanon and other international organization, also in the military experience. So thank you so much, sir, for your thoughts and your suggestion. Thank you. And now I'll request Professor S.N. Mishra, sir, to share his thoughts and views. Over to you, sir. Sir, you can unmute, sir. Sir, unmute. Yes. Yes, sir. No.
Good evening to all the participants. As the last batsman before the distinguished chief speaker speaks, I'll be very, very brief. I'll be extremely brief. Good evening, Justice Patnaik. Good evening, Vivek sir. Good evening, all my distinguished speakers who have spoken before me. Let me pick up from where my good friend Ramesh Mishra mentioned about independent institutions and the importance of institutions. And I will cover a different facet of this, to buttress my point, what really would really embolden an institution and its independence. Farid Zakaria, in a very, very important book, Future of Freedom, he makes a very interesting and pertinent observation. He says, based on his observation of many liberal democracies, he found that independent institutions have contributed more to liberal democracy than by elected representatives. Unlike the perception that unelected people like bureaucrats, like judges, can be flawed, and politicians should be most potent and powerful. Zakaria believes takes a completely different view. And in the Indian context, if you see how the judiciary has contributed, you will see that they have made very, very seminal contribution to the discourse of liberal democracy. I would like to comment on 5 important judgments. The first, as Ramesh mentioned, is the basic structure doctrine in 1973. But for me, the most important definitive judgment is the judgment by Justice Khanna in 1976, where he said that right to life cannot be snuffed away even during emergency. To me, that ADM Jabalpur case remains the real benchmark in judicial independence. The other 3 judgments I would like to highlight. One is, of course, Unikrishna's judgment, where he says that right to education is right to life. And today we have the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, you have 21A, as a clear as a contributor to this judgment. Also, Olga Tellis, that judgment, that right to livelihood. You can't displace people from their shelter. That is a very, very important judgment. Has also been very important, contribution in ensuring that people cannot be evicted from their place without rule of law. And of course, finally, this whole issue of, striking down electoral bond scheme. Having said this, these are 5 very seminal judgments because we perceive the judiciary to be extremely independent. But today, in the next 3-4 minutes, I would like to mention how independence of an institution is also contingent on the selection process. So that's the gravamen of my presentation. All of us know that there are 4 important constitutional bodies. The first, of course, are the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court. Then you have the C&AG, and then you have the Chief Election Commissioner, and then you have the UPSC. These 4 are by common consent that the most important constitutional bodies. But very interestingly, their selection process in the Constitution is different. While as far as the judges are concerned, Article 124 said, Article 124(2) said that they would be appointed by the President after consultation with the Chief Justice of India and other judges. No such consultation process is envisaged in respect of the C&AG, which is also an extremely important body as per the Article 148. As far as the UPSC members and chairman are concerned, there also Article 316 says that they would be appointed by the government. But in respect of the Chief Election Commissioner, the Constitution said in 324(2) that the Parliament will evolve the necessary rules and regulation for appointment of a Chief Election Commissioner. Now, in 2023, in the Anup Banwal case, 2023, Justice Joseph and 3 more judges, they were the first to say that it is very surprising that even after the elapse of, almost 73 years, the rules and procedure for selecting a Chief Election Commissioner has still not been formulated by the Parliament, because the judges very rightly believed that the Chief Election Commissioner plays an overwhelming importance and very infinite plenary power in holding free and fair elections. That's very, very important, and therefore the judgment in 2023 was that before till such time that a law is enacted, you please have the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India, and the Leader of Opposition as the selection committee, just as you have for the CVC, just as you have for the Director CBI. So you bring in an independent person, apart from the political personalities involved, to the selection process. Now, the government, when it made the rules, it took away the Chief Justice of India and brought in the Home Minister, a cabinet minister, which essentially makes it 2-1. So essentially, the writ of the government will hold good. So the point I'm trying to make, and the case now is sub judice. And the irony of the whole case is that though 2 years have passed, the whole case is just being tossed around in the Supreme Court, tossed around for the last 2 years. Now, when the matter went to the Chief Justice of India, he, after 6 months, made a pronouncement that since I could be a party to this whole selection process, it would be a conflict of interest if I become part of the judgment. Fine. So he said, let this be heard by an independent, board. Now, the Supreme Court very well knows that to review a decision which was taken by a 4-member bench, you require a larger bench. You require a constitutional bench of at least 5. Still, you have a bench of 2 consisting of Justice Datta and one more judge to review that process. Now, the whole thing is now the final judgment which Justice Datta has given is that he will take a decision whether the matter should be entertained or it should go to a larger bench. This is the decision he will take after 6 months or so. Today what is happening, I'm sorry to make this statement. The Supreme Court of India is the last lamppost of hope. And all of us know that if an institution has to be an independent institution, as the Chief Election Commissioner should be, or as the CNDs should be, it is very, very important that the selection process should be broad-based. So this is not only applicable to the Chief Election Commissioner, it would equally apply to the judges. We find today a very ironical situation where you do not agree with a NJC structure. You want to have a collegium. It has no parallel anywhere in the world. I scanned all constitutional practices. In South Africa, they have even a civil society representative. The world has recognized that if you want to have an independent institution, for heaven's sake, do not get it appointed by a government or by the same set of people who are going to have a vested interest. Even with the judiciary also, they say it is a very opaque system. So in conclusion, I want to mention, I draw the reference to the very famous P.J. Thomas case in 2011, where Chief Justice Kapadia in 2011, in a very, very important judgment, struck down the selection of the CVC, which was P.J. Thomas, because there was a vigilance case against him, which was pending in import of Palmolene. So the Honorable Chief Justice of India mentioned that, that the Chief Vigilance Commissioner will preserve rule of law and he will infuse public trust. And he therefore mentioned that he is an integrity institution. So I'd like to extend that analogy to institutions like the judges, like the Chief Election Commissioner, like the CNDG and the UPSC. And if we really want institutions to be independent, the selection process must be fair. And in conclusion, I would like to mention that when in 1949, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru asked Mr. Sitalbad, who subsequently became the first Attorney General of India, what are the qualities, he said, Mr. Sitalbad, you'd look for selecting a Supreme Court judge. So everybody thought that Sitalbad would say independence. He said, no, they're supposed to be independent. He said, competence. It's very, very important that we have extremely competent people at the top, and the selection process must not be made by government or government-dominated system, but by a broad-based ballot where there could be balancing of views. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your views on governance, where you give suggestion or you guide us related to how the independent institution should be appointed through a neutral selection committee. Now the time has come. We all wait for the time to listen our chief guest of the day, Honorable Justice Anand Patnaik sir. So I'll request Anand Patnaik sir to share his thoughts and view.
Mr. Deepak Rao, Director of the Academy. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
sir.
You are audible and visible.
All my friends who have given the special lectures today. Mrs. Verma, whom I noticed now, I don't know whether she's there. And my dear civil service aspirants, very good evening. First of all, I would like to speak on the book that was released. Very interestingly, a few days back, I asked Mr. Cuttack to send me a copy of the book in the email, a soft copy of the book. And he sent me the book titled Emerging Contours of International Relations. Today, he sent another book, right, just before the meeting, and that is titled Engaging with a Discourse, Engaging with Governance, a Discourse. So in any case, I don't know whether emerging contours of international relations have been released today. Has been released? Not released today. What has been released is Engaging with Governance, a Discourse. Both the books I have had a glance through. This Engaging with Governance, a Discourse has 14 articles and is about 128 pages. And the other book, Emerging Contours of International Relations, has 26 articles. It means 150 pages. I would request all the civil servant aspirants to read the articles in both the books, whichever article they like, because it will give you a lot of ideas as to how governance takes place, how international relations have been changing from time to time. Now I come to the theme of the discussion, issues of governance, role of institutions. You have heard so many good speakers. All of them are very learned speakers. I would not like to repeat. But I would like to say a few things. First of all, as everybody has said, and as also been mentioned in Mr. Patnaik's book, separation of powers is one of the fundamentals of our Constitution. And the Constitution delineates the different roles of different institutions, namely the legislature, the executive, the judiciary, Election Commission of India, Public Service Commissions, etc. So the roles are there. And next is, what does good governance mean? First of all, good governance means that each of these institutions must play their respective roles assigned to them under the Constitution, and very sincerely and in dedication, and should not depart from the provision of the Constitution. Now, second, rule of law is a basic feature of the Constitution. And those who are assigned to the duties of law and order, you civil servants when you become police officers, some of you may have to enforce rule of law. You can't forget that rule of law is an essential feature. And you cannot just keep on beating up students like they did the other day in Jantar Mantar, forgetting the rule of law, as if they are brute force which they can use anything that like as they think. Police officers, when they function in a country where there is rule of law, they cannot be like, gunas with sticks. With their march, they were protesting peacefully. And you forget rule of law. Our civil servant aspirants who become IPS officers or OPS officers later on, they must think of this important duty assigned in the Constitution. Then the Constitution lays down the directive principle of state policy. It gives you the guidance in part 4, how policy of the government and how law has to be made with legislation in what direction. Unfortunately, because of the influence of wealth, influence of money, policies tend to be changed. You must have come across newspapers how policy have been made for particular business. How law is changed, or particular rules are changed. So you as civil servants, when you become IAS officers or police administrative service officers, you have to guard this. You have to ensure that our rules don't change as per the influence of rich houses, business houses, who have a tremendous influence on the political leaders. That you must take care. Mind you, I always think GDP was there mentioned in the Constitution. Nowhere much. There is a book today, I got it. It's the book Beyond GDP, in Pursuit of Measuring Happiness. GDP was never mentioned. But these Western concepts somehow influenced our policymakers and our lawmakers, and as a result, every day you open up the papers, the media also, GDP is going down, GDP is going up. It's the level of that. You have to concentrate on welfare. As laid out the directive principles. As civil servants, you have to think of this very important issue. Now, as rightly said by some of the speakers in this, you are functioning in democracy. Democracy is also a basic feature of the Constitution. In democracy, there are political leaders. If you have a look at these political leaders, you can't think that they have knowledge of whatever is what knowledge they have on different aspects of society. Obviously, they are impressed with the political agenda. They are interested in their constituencies, political constituencies. The required knowledge and information that is required to formulate policies and to make the law is lacking in them. And therefore, you as civil servants, when you become civil servants, you have to pick up the right knowledge, pick up the right information, and guide the political leaders to make the law or policy. This is very important as a role of civil servants. And if you don't do that, things may go very bad. Now, not only that, society is changing very fast. Demography is changing. That ground information you must have. You must have data when you get to that. You can't just speak out of your hat without any basis, say something and advise the government when you are civil servants. You have to put your foot down, and Mr. Ramesh Mishra say, sir, the data says this should be the policy. Your policy is going the right direction. And this is exactly what happened when a protest took place in Jantar Mantar. The political leaders had no idea as to what was happening in the ground. And suddenly the eruption took place. Rather, Gen Z, you say, had a full idea of what are the frustrations of the youngsters that burst open on that on 20th of July. I remember on 19th of July, I had gone to address a very big gathering in Delhi. And because I'm the president of the All India Convention of the Center for Protection of Human Rights and Secularism in our country. I addressed a lot of big gathering. And Mr. Prashant Bhushan was also there. And I asked him, what is going to happen on 20th, tomorrow? He said, there will be a large gathering, sir. How many? He told me 50,000, not less than 50,000. I had that information on 19th itself. And on 20th, when I see what 50,000, I was told there were lakhs. But the government did not have this information. The bureaucrats could not give the information. The media could not give the information. Why? They were loyal to the master. All of them. Not giving the correct information. They were so confident. Therefore, as civil servants, your duty is ensure that government is advised on the right information, giving the right clean food. And I remember Indira Gandhi. In emergency, she was all power. In 77, she had the information that if I go for election now, I'll get elected. Went for information 1977, lost very miserably. The party lost. Even she lost for her own consequence. Why? Because everybody was scared to inform. Everybody is scared, including the media. Today's country situation. Media is also scared. Civil servants are scared. Police officers are scared. They all inform the boss, sir, everything is all right. Nothing. See, now I'm very happy that there is at all, that now, apart from media, mainstream media, there is the social media. This protest that took place and the large gathering that took place is because of the force of social media. Media may have been controlled. All television media may have been controlled by the government. But the social media had its own force. It's an excellent development. We must appreciate it. This can keep a big check. But ultimately, with what Mr. Professor Mishra said, why this country's institutions are failing? Have you also noticed that they are failing? Judges are failing. In the Supreme Court, they are failing. And I got some of them are criteria. Ministers are failing. Bureaucrats are failing. Election Commission has failed. Public Service Commission is failing. You see what has happened in Jharkhand. Failure of Public Service Commission. Why nothing happened when Mr. Vivek Patnaik was there as chairman of Public Service Commission? Why nothing happened? All the examinations happened very quickly. This shows that people of on capability and integrity. Not only capability and integrity. I don't agree with Mr. Sintalba, only capability. Today, that integrity is being compromised. Some people are very capable. But they say, sir, what can I do? I'm under pressure. Judges are under pressure. Bureaucrats are under pressure. Election commission present. Public Service Commission is present. Very interestingly, I'll tell you, I'll not share the name of the minister. The minister's husband came to my office. Cabinet minister. And I asked him, very famous person, why your wife is such an important minister? Why should you know this? You know what was the reply? She is very sincere. She signs on the dotted line. Whatever the PMO says, she does it. So the ministers are also under pressure. And I was seeing what we call it, very nice video today. Somebody has said very nicely, I forward to Mr. B. Cuttack. You can share it with somebody else or others. I think I've already sent it to Mr. Cuttack. He says, all these things have happened because the top man of this country has kept all incompetent people here around him. And persons who cannot act independently. This happens. I remember Abraham Lincoln, when he chose his Secretary of State, he chose the most difficult critic of his, was also his rival in the Republican Party as Secretary of State. They asked him, why are you appointing him? Your rival, political rival in the Republican Party. He said, who else can advise me better? If you agree that he is very competent, then yes, very competent. Who else can advise me better? So that is the check. So ultimately, friends, our civil servant aspirants, remember these few words I said. I have really agreed to address you all because I think you belong to Gen Z, and Gen Z is the future of our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring speech. Now we are at the end of the session, so I'd like to ask the student if you have any questions or any things or any feedback. You can open your mic and give some feedback or any question you want to ask. 1 or 2 questions because we are already running out of time. So 1 or 2 questions. If you anyone interested to ask or give any feedback. Yeah. Go, Sagar, go.
Good evening,
Yeah.
sir, ma'am, and sir. My question is, sometimes we face some adversities, condition like when we are in service or we will be in service. Sometimes people are more corrupt and people are less corrupt, right? And in that situation, if we will to be very rigid or we will follow the rule and we will think we will not allow this type of situation, then the core the service delivery will be affected. So in that situation, sir, what should be our approach? And
Okay. Sagar, your question, you are addressing the question to whom?
sir, specifically Malay sir. Malay sir.
Okay. The question is to Malay sir. suppose during the service, so we are encountered with the people who are like more corrupt and pressurize you to do some corruption. So how will you handle the situation in that time?
You can answer that question yourself. It's a conscience. It's a conscience. If your conscience speaks out loud and clear, that you will not succumb to any form of corruption. You will not. You will hesitate. But today, the system is so mired in corruption that from top to bottom, any level, anywhere, any institution you go up to, you find this degradation of the society. And I was talking in my lecture about this Gen Z movement. Why? Don't they have any right to a good future? Don't they have a good right to a good education? Is it something wrong to demand a good education from the government? But then, what is this paper leak business? It is outright corruption. Somebody is leaking the paper. Somebody is paying for it. Somebody is gaining out of that. The entire system is corrupt. And if our younger generation is standing up to it, I think it is our duty to support them. I take on what Justice Patnaik just mentioned, that we have to be sentinels in this society. When the judiciary has failed in some way to be the protector of rights of citizens, who will come to their rescue? Where will they go? So the whole system now has become decrepit. The whole system is crying out for correction, and very severe correction of the system is needed. I think this is my answer to your question.
I think I'll supplement this.
Yes. Yes, sir.
The civil service rules, there is a rule that if any higher authority asks you to do something, the subordinate authority must insist, please give written instructions.
Sir.
That's a very good rule. And as a result, he will not do it.
Yes.
He said, I will do if you want me to do this, you give me written instructions. I keep that and protect myself. Read that civil service rules earlier. We have dealt with the rules when as judge at the Guwahati High Court. There is a rule. And secondly, to look at what is the condition of present Chief Justice of India, Justice Vijay. Nalsar students want him, won't want him
Yes.
for the convocation as the chief guest. So Gen Z is growing up. They say we don't want this corruption.
True.
So they are checking, they are putting checks on it. Till now this was not happening. Everybody was surrendering. Now things are changing. And the new generations will change things.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir. So we are the end of the session. So let me conclude and give the vote of thanks. Respected Honorable Justice Anand Patnaik, sir, distinguished speaker, esteemed guest, and dear participants. As we conclude this insightful webinar on issue of governance and role of institution, I extended my heartfelt gratitude to all of our distinguished speakers for their valuable experience, wisdom, and perspectives. Our sincere thanks to Justice Anand Patnaik, sir, Vivek Patnaik, sir, Ramesh sir, Ambassador Dr. Malay Mishra sir, Professor S.N. Mishra sir, Major General Dr. Atanu Patnaik sir, and all our esteemed guests for making this session truly enriching. And special thanks to Anusaya ma'am, Badri sir, and Swadesh sir for their valuable presence and support. So lastly, to our dear civil servant aspirant, I hope today's discussion has definitely inspired you to look beyond examination and understand the larger purpose of public service, strong institution, and responsible leadership. So on behalf of Kalinga IAS Academy, thank you all for joining us and making this webinar a meaningful success. And we are looking forward much more session like this in future, so that where we can bring the best mind of India and best mind, intellectual mind of Odisha to share their knowledge and give us a right path to exactly said by Anand Patnaik sir and to the Gen Z, so that we can move or follow a right path with their proper guidance. Thank you so much. Particularly, I thank so much to Vivek Patnaik sir for this session and give us opportunity to listen all of you. It is really a honor to listen all of you. We cannot learn all these things in books. Really learning from you itself is much more beyond than the books. Thank you all, and thank you sir, and thank you जो मैंने join करिथिलो, and I really like to thanks the students. More than 150 students, they are listening continuously for the 1.5 hours, not 1.5 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes continuously. 150 students, they are patiently listening to the session. It's itself showing that the greatness of the session, and you are really very, I hope ki very much interested in this session. Definitely, we are conducting much more session in future also. Thank you so much, sir, Anand sir, Vivek sir, Malay sir, Atanu sir, and Professor S.N. Yes, yes,
For
sir.
his excellent moderation of the program and how it went. All the speakers were excellent in the views, and particular thanks to Vivek sir, who has been the architect of this program. Your book has spurred this discussion, sir. And I thank you very much for that, for giving us this inspiration. Thank you. And thank you all. Thank you, Justice Anand Patnaik, sir, for your very valuable views. And thanks to all of us. Okay, Deepak. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Good night to all, sir. Thank you, sir.